really never figured it out exactly, but there were days there I'd go in the morning and come back at night. That one picture of the tree, which was negative number 2, was amazing to me, because I came home and my habit is, I'm trying a new subject that I don't know, and I'm experimenting and trying to figure things out. What I would do is I would take, in a case like this, at least 30 negatives or 40 negatives before I'm going to develop any of them. Because I want one good one. I want one that I can look at and say, this is new and interesting and special. It's worth continuing the project. Because if I did 10 and none of them were good, I'd probably drop the project right from the beginning. So there's nothing there for me. So I would take a lot, develop a batch, and this batch baffled me because I never had it really happen before in this way. Most of them were exciting, and one of the things that was exciting was the light, the colors, and that one in particular. One of the, who's got it? The number 2. You got it there? Hold it up.
Here.
That one of the tree, that one. I came back, I made a print, and I asked myself, where the hell are these colors coming from? I didn't take this picture. It was much too much for me. It was beyond what I could understand and see. This was not mine. And the next picture was like that, and the next picture was like that. And I've been dealing with the Israeli landscape for 30 years, photographing it on and off in different ways. I never saw light like that before. And I was wondering, where did it come from? So I went to a close friend of mine, Kenny Lester, who died 2 weeks ago, and I asked Kenny, where are these colors coming from? And he looked at these prints, because he was a fine photographer with a knowledge of color and a sensitivity of the soul and heart. And he looked at him, he says, they're coming from you. I said, that's nice, like go take that to the bank, they're coming from me. It doesn't work like that. A camera doesn't work like that. They're not coming from me. He says, so they say, well, it's from the split developing that you use, because you're the only ones doing split developing in color. That's where it's coming from. I said, maybe a little bit, but not that. Because I've been doing split developing for many years, and I never got colors like that. I said, where are these colors coming from? And I looked at that photograph, I don't know how many hours. I'd pick it up for 5, 10, 15 minutes, look at it, I don't know where it's coming from. Go back. There's only one way to find out. I took a pile of prints like that, the first group. I went down to the Nahal, only with these pictures. I sat in front of all these places, and I looked at the photograph, I looked at the place, and I said, it's not there. The picture's much better than the place. It's much more exciting. It's got, where are these colors coming from? And slowly I learned to see them, because they were there, not at all times. You had to catch the right time of day, because it was this very elusive thing. It was like a dance. You have to come when they're performing. You can't come after the performance is gone and after the stage is empty, but the light there was magic. You could see it the first time you go down there, you just don't understand why. And it's not a feeling of understanding. When you feel magic, it's a feeling, but you have to be able to eventually put it into words and know how to repeat it and where to look for this thing if it's going to come in certain places. Because as spiritual as you might feel it is, it's still going to be about light and where it comes from. And I had to figure this thing out in order to find more places like that, and in order to be able to see this in the continuation of my life. If I was to look back at all of my teachers, and I had some really good teachers. Eugene Smith visited us once, and in one sentence he taught me so much. Someone asked him, finally, and this was not when the master's class was with him, because we were all master students. And when we had him for the first hour by ourselves, which was a chupar, as they say, from the photography department, we got him for the first hour, and then all the rest of the department comes in. They're standing room only. We're sitting. We're master students. We're great. We're smart. We didn't know anything. They come. We're sitting with Gene Smith, this marvelous person, amazing. I mean, this guy radiates something so special. Someone asks him the question, which is a very simple and very profound question. Mr. Smith, what should we learn here? at RIT. What should we learn? It's a very smart question to ask. He answered it like that. He said, learn 3 things: honesty, understanding, and passion. That's it. Years ago, Stieglitz was asked a similar question by a woman photographer who asked him, do you think I have potential? Do you think I have talent? Will I be a good photographer? And he asked her, were you ever in love? And she said, yes. Then you can photograph. So there's a lot of people who are going to answer this thing in different ways. But the idea of the passion and the understanding, how do you learn understanding? How do you learn passion? How do you learn honesty? These are things that you have to learn and discover. So around these different things, I was able to slowly construct a teaching method which incorporated a lot of this stuff, so that when we go into a classroom together in terms of what I do in Bezalel now, or when I go out and photograph, I'm trying to learn these things. And my best teacher of all was Nachal Katlav, by far. It taught me more about seeing than any other teacher that I had. And there was another project that taught me so much about seeing, and this was done very early in my career, and this was an exhibit that was in the Tel Aviv Museum in 1977. It's these photographs. These photographs followed a series that's in the other room. I think I might have some of them. I saved some of them. No, they're in the other room. You'll see them. They're photographs that were done from a moving bus. That too was a discovery. It was right after a war in the beginning of the 70s, went in 75 or so, and I was really upset about the whole country because, I don't know if I got my bags out of the port by then, 5 years later. You used to wait for all this stuff. You waited for a telephone for about 7 years, and you were lucky if you got one, and you were thankful, And if you talked too long to Chutz La'aretz, the operator would get on and say, get off the phone because you're talking too long. Stuff like that. That was way back then, and you were upset with all the bureaucracy of how do you buy a car. I remember that clearly. You go into Peugeot. And he says, what car? Well, do you want to buy a car? It's sitting here. And I says, well, I want to see one. He says, why are you coming here if you don't know what it is? Like when you know about it, when you want to buy it, come back. I'm the distributor. I don't have to show you nothing. I figured this is service. This is, this is the way to buy a fortune worth of a car. And so I was upset coming from this dad. I was ready to criticize everything because in that war afterwards, all of a sudden the prices of eggs went up. And it turned out that during the war there were no eggs to be found. But after the war, as much as you wanted, it just the price went up. And everybody was upset. There was a lot of criticism in the air. And I was part of it. I went out to criticize because I had a lot to say. And I wanted my stuff out of the port after 4 years, I'm kidding. I don't know how long it took, but it was an exorbitant amount of time. So I go out and I'm trying all these ways to criticize, and I don't know how to criticize anything in photography. Photography isn't about words. In words, we can criticize anything. But in photography, how do you do it? So I went out and I tried. I tried it for quite a few years afterwards. Finally, I gave up on it. I couldn't do it. But on the first time I went out, I figured, after trying a couple of different things, and none of them really worked, why don't you try doing it from a moving bus? Because then nobody's going to see you. You're right next to them. Those were the days when you could lift the window of the bus and you could photograph out the window. Today you can't. You can break the window, but you can't lift it. And I would be photographing out the bus, and again, I took something like 20 or 30 rolls of film before I developed them, and sure enough, right from the beginning, and there's one of those out there, this woman sitting alone on a bus bench, and she looks like, well, hell, I mean, she looks like she's had it, and it touched me in a special way, these moments that I was seeing. I mean, and I had this idea of going out to criticize, and I saw something just the opposite happening in the first contact prints. There were these wonderful, sensitive moments that people were living life, and trying to deal with the reality of it, and they were beautiful. And so I said, to hell with the original idea, I can't do it anyway. Let's go on this. This is absolutely wonderful. And that became a series that was kind of the opposite of Cartier-Bresson, in that I felt that every moment in life can be special. You don't need that one moment when everything works out. I want every other moment. I want, just sitting with a cup of coffee around the table. I don't need that great big thing. The quiet moment. It's not the vacation, it's everyday life. And that's what I wanted in those photographs afterwards. I wanted to discover that. It was a project of love. It was something where you go out and you see this marvelous thing, this theater of life that's happening all around you when you're looking out the window of a bus, and it was absolutely wonderful. I worked on that for 2 years. The biggest problems I had with that was not the intensity. The intensity was awesome. I mean, you had to be so focused in that fraction of a second that you see it, you respond to it intuitively, you know it's right, and you frame it, and you're moving, and you're panning with it, and you do it as exact as possible, and within a second or so you've made all your decisions, it's gone. That wasn't the problem. The